Peace Tribe. This is Chantel, and you're tuned into the Empowerment Bookstore, a podcast dedicated to interviewing authors in the community and inspiring others to share their story. Sharing time and space with me today is Dr. Ngozi M. Obi. Dr. Obi is an American author of Nigerian Igbo descent whose love for writing has evolved into four published works of fiction, an anthology co authored with 30 other women, and two children's books to date. Her journey as a writer began in response to her search for a genre of fictional books with an inspirational message that seamlessly tackled the complexity of life's concepts. Craving such ingenuity has allowed her to tap into her vivid imagination and create tangible characters that many people can relate to. Delving into writing has also helped to give her work-life balance as a pharmacist, and she serves as a constant which serves as a constant escape and way to help deal with life's issues. Love's Destiny, her debut album, is an intriguing tale of love lost and found. Her second novel, When Dreams and Visions Collide, is an uplifting tale of fulfilling dreams despite arduous challenges. Her third novel, Love's Legacy, continues the quest of true love in a riveting sequel to her first novel. Her fourth novel, Land of the Rising Sun, a fictional tribute to Biafra, chronicles the Nigerian-Biafran War through the eyes of a young and impressionable female nurse whose ideas of how life should be are well beyond her times in a historical fiction tribute. It's also available as an audiobook. Dr. Obi has also co authored Women of Purpose, an anthology along with 30 other women. The Women of Purpose anthology was written to encourage women and girls to pursue and fulfill their purpose in life despite any fears or limitations they may face. It's published by Higgins Publishing and is currently available through higginspublishing.com. Timmy's Time Tale is Dr. Obi's first children's book and uses the backdrop of family love to teach children ages 6 and up to tell time the old school fashioned way using an analog clock. Her second children's book, Shades of Me, celebrates the beauty of diversity and reminds us that every child, regardless of their skin color, is equally important. Dr. Obi's books are creatively imagined from life's organic flow and aim to inspire children and adults. Her books are available in various formats and digital download through most online sellers. Dr. Obi resides in the love filled state of Virginia, where she serves the community through her pharmacy practice. In her spare time, when she's not busy writing books, she enjoys traveling, cooking, and experimenting with different recipes, frequenting spa escapes, shopping, and reading. Welcome, Dr. Obi.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love to jump right in and get started learning a little bit more about your story and how you got here as a writer. I understand that you had a desire to find books that had an inspirational message. Can you tell us a little bit more about that specific spark of inspiration and what made you want to step into creating meaningful literature?
Well, let's go back. I've always loved books. I've always loved to read as a child, a gamut of things. But I grew up in an African home. My parents are originally from Nigeria. So I couldn't necessarily aspire to become a writer. If you're not a doctor, lawyer, engineer, then, they're going to pray for you and, you're not going to make it in life. But, it just never left me. And for me personally, after I graduated pharmacy school, my mother got sick. And so I was kind of looking for an escape, and I couldn't really find what it was that I was looking for. And, they say writing is cathartic. So I started writing, and that's how my very first novel, Love's Destiny, um, kind of came to be. So that if you're looking for something that sparked it, that lit the fire again, so to speak. And I gave it to a few friends to read, just, hey, what do you think about this? And they were like, well, maybe you need to think about really getting this published. And that was how Love's Destiny, my first book, I don't know if you can see it, um,
Yes.
born. It's a love story. I don't like to say romance novel because when you say romance novel, everybody thinks about oh, maybe something not so great, but this is a great love story. It's
Mm.
about a young woman who is coming into her own self, and stuff, and she meets a guy, and it's wonderful. I don't want to get all into it and give it all away, but it's a very good read. So
Sure.
so that's kind of
You,
how. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh no, go ahead, please.
No, that's kind of how, I started writing. And like I said, that's kind of how the spark was lit again for something that
Hmm.
was already in there but buried because I couldn't necessarily aspire to go into that profession.
Hmm. I see. So carving your own path and creating that opportunity for yourself was off the beaten path, it sounds like.
Very much so. Very much so. I actually remember my very first semester in college and coming home that Christmas, and both of my parents were sitting on the couch. And I was so excited because that semester we had a journalist come talk to us. And so I was like, I'm going to change my major. I don't want to be a biology major anymore. I think I want to become a journalist, blah, blah, blah. And my dad looks at me and he says, do you like to eat? I was like, what do you mean? Do I? Of course I like to eat. He said, well, journalists don't eat. And, that kind of quelled it for me. So that's what I was, kind of dealing
Hmm.
with that. But, it stayed inside. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of, whatever your passion is, whatever you love to do, you can let it quell for a little while, but never let it die, because
Hmm.
ultimately that may be, the key to your purpose.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It sounds like a lot of your books explore the themes of love, resilience, and identity. And even as you've kind of evolved into authoring several different types of books, I know that really does come from the core. Could you share about how you incorporate your heritage into your storytelling, or what significance that cultural representation might have played in how you write your books?
Well, it plays a lot into how I write my books. And in most of my books, like in, Love's Legacy, Love's Destiny, some of the stories that my parents told me growing up, come into play in there. That culture is very strong. Actually, in Love's Legacy, which is the sequel to Love's Destiny, there's a traditional African marriage in there. So it has a lot to do with it. And I think it's important because a lot of times, we lose culture, we lose different things when writing. I know
Hmm.
that part of the reason I, did self-publishing before I started delving into a little bit more of traditionals, because they wanted to like edit my voice out. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Edit the culture out.
Hmm.
In Land of the Rising Sun, which is my historical fiction, and we'll talk about that later. There's like Pidgin English, which is kind of like West African patois. So
Hmm.
if you think about, the Creole, Louisiana Creole, this is kind of, or the Jamaican, Creole type thing. This is West African patois, and I thought it was relevant to the book. But when I initially wanted to present it to traditional publishers, they were like, oh, well, people will not necessarily understand, what you're saying, and all of that. I said, well, that's the point. They
Hmm.
may not understand, but the point is for them to learn, right?
Right.
Well, this is something different that you may not be familiar with, but, curiosity, hey, what are they saying? And that's another reason we decided to do the audiobook for Land of the Rising Sun,
Hmm.
so that people can get a better understanding of, the Pidgin English. Of course,
Hmm.
now it's out there because Afrobeat is a thing,
Hmm.
but it wasn't necessarily a thing a few years ago. So, people are more accepting of that now,
Hmm.
that's why we did that.
What was it like? What kind of courage did it take for you to kind of stand up for that cultural element? I can imagine that it was challenging to kind of pitch your stories and really get the confidence from those other parties that this was a good fit. What was that experience like for you?
Well, I mean, for me, I had to stand my ground. And, when I didn't like what they were doing, I decided to go another route,
Mm.
in order to open up new channels, if you will. and chart your path, if you will. You have to have that courage that not everybody's going to agree with you. Not everybody's even going to like what you're doing. But if you
Mhm.
feel like that's your calling, then you have to be able to stand behind it. Even with the audiobook, and my publisher for that, Tahara Saron, she fought for, some things in there because Audible was like, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that. But she, as a Black publisher, really, stood her ground too. No, you do this for other people. This is
Mhm.
what we're going to do for this book, as well. So I mean, you just have to be able to stand your ground. Sometimes you just have to put the blinders on, you
Mhm.
know, and say, this is what I'm going to do. Now, take constructive criticism, but not to the point where your voice is edited out or your purpose seems to be diminished, because that's not what somebody else has in mind for you.
Right, right. And I think you touched briefly on that with the cultural element of education from your family's point of view, wanting to go into the medicines or engineering or something that has a level of pedigree and esteem. Share a little bit with us about the balance between your professional career and your passion for writing. How do you find kind of a harmony between those two?
Well, if you know anything about healthcare in general, it's very stressful. From the MDs, I'm a PharmD, so I have a doctor of pharmacy degree, to nursing. And, even now with COVID and everything, so having to deal with that, I even tell, the younger generation that's coming into healthcare, you have to find an out. You have to find something that balances you, something that, once you leave the hospital, that you can get into, that's going
Mhm.
to center your mind, center you, bring balance to your life, because we can't be all work, 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 you know. So for
Mhm.
me, writing is cathartic, and I mean, even some of the things that I may experience in, healthcare, it may end up in one of my books. I'm just saying. But it helps to like empty your mind, and just
Yes.
helps you to center. And for some people it may not be writing. Some people may like arts and crafts. It just depends on you personally. But for me, this has been a good way for me to find, like work life balance. If I'm dealing with
Mhm.
issues at work, I come home, and I write, kind of put my jazz music on. That's my muse, you know, and I write and I write and I write. And, it's fortunately ended in all these books and many more on my
Mhm.
computer that I'm working on. But I think that's really important, and something that even as women, we take that for granted. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? We want to take care of everybody else, but we don't want to take care of ourselves. So whatever we need to do to take care of ourselves so that we can be present to do those other things, we need to delve into it. And this is my way.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think creativity is a really sacred space, and you do have to spend time nurturing that energy. So, having an outlet or a way to kind of manage all the different pieces, the moving parts of life, the ups and downs, and channeling that into something productive.
Absolutely.
I agree, is absolutely very cathartic. Your anthology, Women of Purpose, aims to encourage women and girls in pursuing their purpose in life. What was the inspiration behind that project, and how did you foresee the impact on your readers?
Well, this is Higgins' dream.
Okay.
And I was fortunate to be part of it. She gathered about 30 of us from different walks of life, each kind of telling their story of how they're pursuing, their purpose to encourage others. Because sometimes, people, oh, I want to do this, I don't know if that's my purpose and all of that. And then, they stop there. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? But if you kind of hear what other people are doing, despite whatever challenges they may have, and they're still pushing through and, fulfilling their purpose, kind of makes you think, oh, you know what? I can do it too. So Shanine Higgins dreamed this up and, brought all of us together. Their different stories, all women from all walks of life. And it's not only girls and men that we want to, I mean, women that we want to encourage. We want to encourage some of our brothers as well, because
Hmm.
sometimes they don't have the motivation, if you will, to fulfill their purpose. And we're all put here on earth for a reason, and not just to wander through. So that's kind of why we did this. That was the inspiration behind that. My chapter in it is called Journey to Purpose, because I feel like a lot of times people think, okay, this is my purpose, and it becomes a destination rather than a journey. And there's journey to get into your purpose, there's journey while you're fulfilling your purpose, and there's journey after you feel like you fulfill your purpose. So it's not just a stagnant thing. I'm trying to get to a destination.
Hmm.
Life itself is a journey, and trying to get there is a journey, and fulfilling purpose is a journey, and we have to embrace that.
Absolutely. That's something that I've been challenged with here lately as well. Just imagining the destination, It needs to look like this. This was the plan. This is how I expected everything to play out. And life has its own plan. And you really have to learn through living, I imagine, that, just being present, being in it, and being open, keeping yourself open to whatever is being revealed to you will pay off in the end.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what makes life beautiful. It's not just run into something.
Hmm.
It's the whatever that comes your way that tries to block you, how you get around it. You know, you gain patience from that. You gain strength from that. You learn from that. How to pivot, when you need to, excuse me, so that you get things done. And the beauty of God is that's the way He is. And a lot of times, we have like you were saying, a path set. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to get there. And then, all your plans get dashed, and you're like, but man, you said that this is what I was supposed to be doing. What's going on?
Hmm.
But it's the ability to navigate that makes
Yes.
the journey beautiful. And then when you look back, you're like, man, I couldn't have done this, if this hadn't happened. I wouldn't have learned this lesson if that
Hmm.
hadn't happened. I wouldn't have gained strength here or the courage to stand up for this if this hadn't happened. So sometimes we need to embrace that. It's not saying that, our dreams are going to be dashed all the time, but we have to learn to, listen for the lesson. What is the lesson in
Hmm.
this? What is it that I'm supposed to learn? What is it that I'm supposed to glean from this?
Hmm.
Because, in my opinion, nothing happens by accident. Everything happens for a reason. And if we can embrace that in life and glean from that, my God, what impact would have, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm not sure about you, Dr. Obi, but I don't think that was spelled out for me when I was a youth. So you really do have to learn through trial and error. And I'm really curious to hear kind of your children's themes. So you've got Timmy's Time Tale and Shades of Me, and they both kind of talk about family, diversity, and learning. So share a little bit about what led you to go into children's books and maybe how you wanted to incorporate some of these bigger life lessons in a smaller package.
Well, I delved into children's books because I was at a book fair in Richmond, and all these little kids kept coming to the table, and the look of disappointment on their faces when I'm like, no, I don't have any children's books at this time. So for my very first book, I decided if I'm going to write something, it has to be educational, right? And a dying art of learning, a dying part of learning, if you would, is the telling time on the analog clock. They really don't
Hmm.
teach that, anymore. Everybody has their digital watches and digital things, so the
Hmm.
numbers pop up. So I felt like that would be a great place to start. At least we can, because I mean, we're always going to have an analog clock. We're always
Hmm.
going to have a wall clock somewhere. So that's kind of how I started, with my children's books. And Timmy's Time Tale is learning how to tell Timmy's time tale is learning how to tell time on the analog clock from his grandmother. So that's how we started in that. And for me, Shades of Me was important for me to write. It's about diversity. I feel like children need to see themselves. It builds self-esteem if they see themselves in like books and things like that. But I also feel like children need to see other children, right? In
Mm-hmm.
books, different places, because it builds tolerance. But and in the world that we live in today, that everything is so divided, you know, you have to start them at such a young age to kind of be cohesive with one another. It's okay that he's not the same skin color. He's just as important. It's okay that, he may not speak, your same language, but he's just as important. And I think if we start them there, you know, as they grow, they embrace that, and they won't walk away from that. I think it makes things easier, in life. At least
Mm-hmm.
that's my opinion anyway. So that's how those two books were born. I have about two more children's books that I'm working on. Hopefully they'll be out, but everybody loves those. So I'm grateful to have been able to do that.
Yes. So, beyond your writing, I know you enjoy activities like traveling, cooking, and of course, reading. What type of influence do those activities have on your creativity? How do you stay connected and in tune with what motivates you to write?
Well, it helps to keep me centered, and I believe that in order for you to fulfill your purpose or achieve anything in life, you have to be centered. We can't be like running all over the place, helter skelter. So a good spa day will help bring me back to my center, give me some peace. Cooking does the same thing for me, especially experimenting with different recipes. And when I cook, I like to cook by myself because it's a peace thing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
for me. Traveling the same thing, I like to travel to, places that, I can enjoy myself and just, be calm,
Mm-hmm.
because in those calm moments, you can hear your inner self, you can hear
Right.
God, you can hear, what you're supposed to do. But if we're constantly running around, you can't hear, and we
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to hear, what's on the inside so that we can bring it to fruition.
Mm.
So that's why, I do those things, and those things are very common for me. And like I said, they help center me so that I can hear clearly to what the next steps are in
Okay.
fulfilling purpose. Yeah.
So I'm hearing that solitude and full immersion are really key components of just getting the message and then being able to communicate that message, with the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. Well, looking ahead, what future projects or themes are you excited to explore? I know you just mentioned you've got a few more books coming. What can we look forward to hearing from you next?
Well, what the main book that I'm working on now is kind of a nod to African American history. And one of the reasons, I wanted to write this was, here lately, they've been banning books. They don't want to teach African American history in schools and things like that. So I decided that I wanted to delve into that because, we get some African American history, but, we really don't delve into it. They don't like give us um, the I can't. I'm at loss for words right now, but you know what I'm talking
I
about.
do. I do.
So, yeah. So when I started doing the research, I had to kind of dial it back a little bit because I had to take it in small doses, so that I wouldn't end up hating people for what they did to our ancestors. And even little things as, I don't know if you've heard the story of how butter pecan ice cream came to be. And a black man actually, he didn't discover vanilla, but he was the one that kind of brought vanilla here for them to be able to create vanilla ice cream. And
Mm.
black people were not allowed
Mm-hmm.
to eat vanilla ice cream unless it was the 4th of July and they had a coupon, right? To get it. And because of that, they decided, well, we're going to put some butter, add some pecans to it. And that's how butter pecan ice cream,
Yes.
to be, little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Central Park in New York used to be Seneca Village, a thriving, Black and Irish community that was taken from them. So when you start to learn things like that, and you're like, wow, even Christopher Newport here in our backyard, they took some of their land, that land from Black people, not even under eminent domain, just because they felt like it was right. And that's not so far in the past,
Mm-hmm.
these are more recent things.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes you wonder, okay, what is it that they don't want us to learn about? And I feel like we need a book like this, something, where something like this lives, but in a fictional fashion,
Mm-hmm.
especially from the younger generation. I think we take our freedom for granted. And some of our ancestors gave their lives for us to live free in these United States. And because of that, we owe it to their legacy and their memory to be great. And, a lot of kids are taking it for granted, shooting one another, we just, going through life like it's no,
Mm-hmm.
no, 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 no. People died so that you can live free. We owe that debt of gratitude to them, to not to waste our lives or to waste somebody else's life, but to be great and to continue in that fashion. So that's one of the reasons I'm excited about it. I thought I would have had it done by Black History Month 2024, but like I said, I had to dial it back because I would find myself, reading about these things. I'm like, how could people be so callous? How could you do that, you know, to people, just because you felt like you could, you
Mm-hmm.
know? I mean, being classified as what, 3/5 of a person, and this says human life is human life, regardless of what the color
Mm-hmm.
it presents itself in. So that's one thing you guys can look forward to. That's also going to be an audiobook. Like I said, I have a sequel to my second book, When Dreams and Visions Collide, coming out too. That's going to be called
Okay.
Beauty for Ashes. This I call my comic relief. If you just want something to kind of sit down and laugh all through, you can get this, and that one's going to be just as funny as that.
Okay.
And then two children's books that we're doing. We've also done a documentary associated with Land of the Rising Sun, kind of talking about the Igbo people, the tribe
Mm-hmm.
that that war affected. Like I said, that was historical fiction about a war that happened, an actual war that happened in Nigeria in the late 60s. Both of my
Mm-hmm.
parents were at war before they came to this country.
Mm.
And what they went through is unimaginable. I mean, the hunger. If you ever look up the Biafran Kwashiorkor children, we have some pictures of them because this book is actually done in a three-part series, or three parts in one book. The first part kind of gives you a history of how Nigeria became a nation. I don't know if you can see that, and the things that plagued the country to cause the Nigerian-Biafran War.
Mm-hmm.
The second part is like a historical fiction tribute. So what I did with that was I took all the stories that my parents told me over the years and kind of wrote a backstory to connect them. So you don't know which part is fiction and which part is not. Just to kind of give you an idea of what the people went through. And for me, hearing when I started doing my research for this book, what tugged at my heart were the Biafran Kwashiorkor children, because they became the unlikely faces of the war. One of the things that they wanted to use to kind of kill them with was hunger. Um, Adults can bear hunger for a little bit of time, children cannot. And
Mm-hmm.
all of this chronicled in Times archives. If anybody wants to research it, this is something that actually happened back then. So when I sat down, I was like, well, let's do something more than just the book and the audio version of the book. So we did a documentary, but we wanted to trace the Igbo tribe from civilization, and we're trying to get that on Netflix as we we speak. And another thing that I would like to do with Land of the Rising Sun is make the historical, not the historical, the fictional portion of it into a movie. So we're working with that. And in 2019, I actually went to Hollywood. I went to a conference trying to engage some directors, producers. And one theme that kept coming up was everybody wanted to turn it into a love story. And I just wasn't willing to make this into. I have a book that's specifically a love story. For
Mm-hmm.
me, we can have a love story in it, but I wanted the crux of the book to be that everything isn't a love story. It's a good thing.
Gotcha.
I love stories. I write it, but this is a little bit more important than that. And that's kind of like them telling me that this new book I'm writing that needs to be a love story as well. No, it's a nod to African American history,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I want that to live somewhere so that if a child 50, 100 years after I'm gone picks that up, they can read all that, and something should spark in them and say, hey, I can't just waste my life. Too
Mm-hmm.
much happened for me not to to continue to waste my life. I have to be great. I have to fulfill my purpose. So
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Obi. There's so much, it sounds like, coming our way to learn more. And I want to just thank you for your commitment to preserving these stories and, making sure that this legacy does not go unloved in the future. Where can people find you? How can we keep up to date with what you've got coming out? And I think you've got a website to share with us. Are you on any social medias?
yeah, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, but my website is ladyofdestiny.com. And all the links to the books and everything else is on ladyofdestiny.com if anybody's interested. We're trying to update that as we speak, but it is still live, so all the links to the books are there. Any events that we're having will be there. I even started a blog that we did some time ago, and so all of that is there if anybody's interested. And you can read more about me. You can send me an email and just get in touch and what we need to with what's going on with me and the things that we're planning for the future. So
All right, tribe. Well, that wraps up another inspiring episode of the Empowerment Bookstore, where we aspire and inspire others to share their stories that change the narrative. A big thank you to our incredible guest today, Dr. Ngozi M. Obi. Her commitment to promoting legacy through storytelling is truly commendable. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to share, subscribe, and spread the positive vibes. And until next time, stay empowered, stay healthy, and keep reading. Thank you, Dr. Obi.